Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really fascinating. We're dissecting an incredibly brief, but honestly, philosophically massive piece of source text. You know, we hear maxims all the time, but we rarely stop to actually analyze the architecture of the words themselves. So we're going to deconstruct an exact 8-word sequence to uncover this profound framework of human agency that's literally hiding in plain sight. But here's the twist. We aren't just looking at this linguistically. We're going to look at it through the highly calculated, relentlessly pragmatic lens of a 30-year veteran in actuarial science and risk management.
Okay, let's just listen to this for a second. If you can dream it, you can do it. Take a moment and let the absolute totality of that single, unbroken statement really sink in. It's essentially a complete universe of thought, all condensed into a perfectly balanced linguistic equation. And if you ask a risk manager, well, to them, it's an equation of profound risk and ultimate reward.
Now, what's really striking here is how the text structurally and conceptually splits right down the middle into two perfectly mirrored halves. On the left, we've got if you can dream it, and on the right, you can do it. From an actuarial perspective, this perfectly illustrates the foundational dichotomy of long-term planning, right? The left side is your forecast, and the right side is your realization. Basically, what happens in the conceptual realm is deeply, inextricably tied to the tangible outcomes we actually achieve in the physical world.
Part 1. The conditional prerequisite.
So, the very first word sets the entire stage for everything that follows. And in actuarial science, the word if isn't just a simple conjunction. It represents conditional probability. Think of it as a variable representing the exact risks and conditions required to trigger a final payout, which in this case is the do. This single tiny little word transforms the whole phrase from a simple statement of universal fact into a profound, calculated challenge. It literally demands that you satisfy a set of parameters right out of the gate.
You can think of that word if as the ultimate risk threshold. It's the gatekeeper. The reality of the second half of the sentence absolutely cannot exist without first satisfying the condition of the first half. You have to unlock the gate by realistically assessing and accepting the conditions required to move forward. The physical world is entirely locked behind this necessary conceptual prerequisite.
Moving on to Part 2. The agency of you.
Now notice that the word you appears exactly twice in our 8-word text. On the left side, you are the dreamer. On the right side, you are the doer, meaning the architect of the vision and the executor of the labor are the exact same entity. Through a risk management lens, you aren't just the person dreaming up some lofty goal. You are essentially the underwriter who has to execute and cover the actual liabilities of that dream.
So it begs the question, right? Why is the subject identical in both clauses? Well, it's because externalizing the doing part introduces a whole bunch of uncontrollable risk variables. If you're relying on some external savior or just sheer luck, your plan is probably going to fall apart. Keeping the subject identical means you retain absolute control over your own long-term planning and execution. It places the entire burden, and honestly the entire power, squarely on your own individual agency.
Which brings us to Part 3, the capacity to dream.
Now, to a 30-year veteran actuary, dreaming isn't just some whimsical, passive fantasy. Not at all. It is the active, internal construction of a highly calculated long-term predictive model. It's the absolute necessary cognitive step required to satisfy the sentence's initial condition. The text is essentially arguing that dreaming is an active, rigorous form of mental labor.
Because, think about it, physical manifestation is entirely impossible without mental origination first. You simply cannot mitigate a risk you haven't modeled, and you definitely can't achieve a goal you haven't thoroughly projected. The source material is telling us that reality, quite literally, begins with this robust internal conception.
Part 4. The capacity to do.
And here we arrive at the ultimate resolution of the sentence. Do is the actualization of the risk plan. If the dream is your predictive model, then the do is the active, daily management of capital, time, and resources over years and years to reach that projected outcome. This verb finally fulfills the promise made earlier in the text by the word can. Do is the physical, undeniable proof of that capability.
But take a second and think about the invisible space between the two halves of our source text. It goes straight from if you can dream it right over to you can do it. And you know, in the world of an actuary, that invisible space right in the middle, that is exactly where risk lives.
The sheer, unbroken sequential logic of the text kind of implies this direct, unyielding pipeline from thought to action. Boom, step 1, step 2. But an experienced risk manager knows the actual reality. The gap between step 1 and step 2 is heavily filled with meticulous, long-term planning, contingency funds, and carefully calculated risk. The magic between dreaming and doing? It isn't actually magic at all. It's math, it's endurance, and it's serious preparation.
Okay, let's wrap this up with part 5, synthesizing thought and action.
So we've got these 4 conceptual pillars, and together they form the ultimate risk management portfolio for a human life. We're talking conditional triggers, individual accountability, long-term modeling, and strategic execution. Each one completely relies on the others to function perfectly. Together, they hold up the entire philosophy of this 8-word text.
And here's the final, honestly brilliant piece of the linguistic puzzle. Dream it, do it. The word it repeats twice, meaning the exact thing that is dreamed must be the exact thing that is done. Think of it as the constant asset being carefully protected and developed across a 30-year span. Your vision cannot be diluted by unforeseen risks if your planning is sound. The structural and thematic unity stays totally anchored.
So there it is, the architecture of action, laid out simply and undeniably. Now that you've seen the profound, direct link between your mind and your reality, and the calculated risk required to actually bridge them, it really leaves us with one final question. What will you dream, and exactly how will you plan for it?